This is an audio recording featuring Eleanor Kibrick, a professional astrologer with over 35 years' experience. Eleanor discusses the significant astrological events occurring in and around June of 2012 and what impact they might have on the world. She also discusses how prophecies from various traditions recognized and describe the importance of these times. If you'd like more information about Eleanor or to request a reading, please see the information below this video. We apologize, we only have audio for this presentation, but thanks for listening.
Have any of you felt that time is speeding up, that things are moving very rapidly?
Oh, definitely. Mm-hmm.
And a lot of different, almost like force fields, are coming into alignment with each other from different, seemingly different traditions. And so I was relating in 1979 when I was living in Toronto, there was a huge gathering in Toronto and at the same time in LA and in London. That was kind of like a big human unity conference. It had a different name, but I mean, like Buckminster Fuller was there, all kinds of people were there. It was really, really fantastic. And there was one afternoon, there was a small workshop of maybe 15 people sitting in a circle, and one of them was Thomas Banyaka, and he was a Hopi elder. And he shared with us the Hopi prophecy, which is written on a piece of leather that he'd been carrying around and tasked to bring it to the United Nations. And he had been on the road about that on and off since 1948. This is 1979, so that's 31 years later. Wow. And so he showed us the picture of, there were two parallel lines, and then there was a nexus point around now, because he said it would be around 30 years from then, which is around now, that showed that we'd have a big choice point, the human race, whether we go the high road and survive or the low road and we won't, you know. And I took it in so intensely, I really believed him, you know, it was like, that I quit my job at the Royal Ontario Museum. I started a television production company to tell the Hopi story. It didn't happen, and I lost all my money, but that wasn't the point. I felt the truth of it. And in fact, he did present the Hopi prophecy at the UN in 1995. So that's almost 50 years later, and that had been his mission. And he got in there through the help of a couple of people that I know that are part of the prayer vigil group that put on the events in Washington. So that was the first kind of prophecy that went right into my soul. You know, I really believed it. It was very shocking to me. And the Hopi prophecy was talking about these times, around these times. And then, of course, Grandfather Commanda used to come to our vigil. And as a matter of fact, Thomas Banyaka came for years to our vigil too. So I met him many years later in Washington, D.C. when we had our big gathering on the Mall. And he was telling the Hopi story. And Grandfather Commanda was the keeper of two wampum belts. And he only showed us one. Every year he'd bring this amazing belt that's made of purple shell. And then there are diamond-shaped patterns that are in white shell, and it's the seven fire prophecy. And what he was about is saying, and they had this belt for 500 years or more. So for the last 500 years, they've seen us go through the different stages, and now he said it's time to light the eighth fire.
Wow.
And it's around now. Okay, if we can't light the fire, the eighth fire, then we're not going to be around. So same kind of timing and seemingly different traditions, same schedule. Then another one that...
what is the eighth fire, Eleanor?
The eighth fire would be a way of sustaining ourselves on the planet. So we have life, fire.
And I'm going to show my ignorance. I don't know what the other seven fires have been.
I don't know either.
Oh, okay.
It's just that we had come to the end of them. Okay. And I don't know how they were divided in terms of years. That I have no idea.
What would they represent, though, each fire?
Different. I don't know enough about it to be intelligent about it. Okay. I just remember that we had to light the eighth fire. And he didn't talk about the others. And in the Hindu system of yugas, the major ages. Each age takes 26,000 years, and we're right at the end of the Kali Yuga, or the Iron Age, which has to do with violence and, injustice and all the things that have been going on for a long time. We're right at the end of that Yuga, and we're starting the Golden Age, the Golden Yuga. So there's a transition that we're in according to that timing. And then when you look at the Mayans, and there's been so much publicity about the Mayan calendar, well, different people have different, the way they calculate, different calculations, so that the most popular one is something major, is changing on December the 21st of 2012. There's a astrologer that I really respect in terms of the research that she does and who she calls on for research, and she said it happened this past October 2011. So it isn't, and it also, these are big ages. It's not about one day something changes. There's been a buildup of energy from many different traditions around the world, that these are the times that they were talking about. And then, speaking astrologically, there's a fixed star called Regulus. That's a very bright star in the cosmos. And Regulus spends about 2,100 and a half years per astrology sign. So it has a 26,000 year cycle to go through all of the different 12 signs of the zodiac. So for the past 2,169 years, it was in the sign of Leo. It's now in the sign of Virgo. So we're starting a new 2,150 year cycle of the sacred feminine coming in. And it was interesting because years ago, I read this book. The title is what grabbed me, and that's why I read the book called The Creation of Patriarchy. And I was so shocked. I thought, creation? Isn't it always this way? I really didn't know.
No.
I didn't realize how enculturated I was. That this is the way human nature is.
Always been. Yeah.
And in it, she said, 2,000 and so many hundred years ago is when the Aryans, the blonde-haired, blue-eyed people from the north, with their horses, and they were warriors, and they invaded the south. They invaded India, Turkey, lots of the Middle East. They just invaded, and the creation of patriarchy happened. So it became less an agrarian society only into a very warrior-like societies, and they just conquered and killed. And Leo is the sign of military, it's a sign of power, it's a sign of kind of aggrandizement and so on, and it's complete. And now we're at 0 degrees of Virgo. So we're just entering a different energy field. That's the rising up of the feminine. The masculine isn't going to disappear, but to balance what's been going on. And it's happening around this time. It just went into Virgo a few months ago. And this is after 2,169 years. So, when you start, it really adds up to a lot of things happening at the same time. And now, also, we've had the rare event of Venus crossing the Sun. It won't be back again for 105 years. And so Venus, the feminine energy, crossing the masculine sun, some people are calling it now like the feminization of the sun. Mm-hmm. And the sun is the ruler of Leo. So it's like Regulus. Venus, coming in over the sun, Leo, moving, receding, and Regulus now in Virgo. So, when I look at all of that and I think of all of that, we're living in amazing times, and I feel actually optimistic about it because, yes, there's a huge backlash going on right now, and it's also, it's all over the world. But if you look at the United States as an example, where I read the news sometimes, it's that a lot of states have banned health insurance companies funding contraceptives.
I read.
Yeah, and that's the law. They can pay for Viagra but they won't pay for contraception.
Oh, isn't that amazing?
It's ridiculous when you think of it, eh?
Well, it's very serious because a lot of people can't afford it unless it's covered. And Medicaid, they're looking at not covering it. I don't know how far. So they're looking at something exceptionally oppressing as a big backlash to the inevitability that it's not going to last.
Yeah.
And then going to a shorter cycle that happens about every few hundred years, but the whole cycle. But we're looking now at Pluto and Uranus. Pluto energy it's the ruler of Scorpio, and it's the energy connected with deep, fundamental, basic, foundational issues, and also the kind of mass consciousness. But it's really deep foundational issues. Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius, has to do with, it's a sudden, sharp energy. It happens to be, and I'll tell you in a minute. So it's now in a stressful relationship with Pluto. The last time they were in a stressful relationship was in the 60s. In the mid-60s, Pluto and Uranus were in Virgo, so a healing sign, together in the 60s for about 5-6 years on and off. And that was a time of a lot of breakdown, but a lot of breakthrough. A lot of people left. They created their own communities, but there were, lots of marches against Vietnam. I was right there in the middle of it. It was amazing energy. It was nothing compared to what's going on now. It was a lot, so I'm not saying it didn't do anything. It's like the seed. And now Uranus and Pluto are not in Virgo, the healer. Pluto is in Capricorn, and Capricorn has to do with structure, the economic structure, the political structure, the structure in the body, the bones, structure. And Pluto is in the foundational energy is in structure. So if structures are weak or they don't have a foundation, Uranus squaring it will absolutely shatter it apart. And if you just read the papers, they've bailed out Greece, and now Spain wants to be bailed out. It's like there's a cascade of energies happening in the economic system in Europe, but it's certainly affecting the whole world. Everything's being affected. And also weather patterns. There are a lot of earthquakes happening. They're not all reported, on the front page. And of course the big one was Fukushima and the reactor and Japan last year. And so, interestingly enough, Pluto also has to do with plutonium and atomic power. And when Pluto was discovered as a planet, the same year plutonium was discovered, and they smashed the atom in 1933.
Okay.
And a lot of seers and medicine people and so on said, this is the beginning of the end because it goes against nature to smash an atom apart. It's not natural. Yeah.
May I ask
Sure.
Now tell me, Chiron, is that a planet or a star?
It's an asteroid.
Asteroid.
Yeah,
okay.
it's not.
Somebody asked me, and I didn't know.
Yeah. It's an asteroid that has tremendous energy component to it. It's in between Saturn and Uranus. Okay. Saturn is the last of the physical planets, and Uranus is the first of the metaphysical. So it's the bridge between spirit and matter.
Oh, I see.
It's that experiencing of connection between the soul and the body, the mind and the body, us and the earth. It's that connectivity.
Yeah.
And
Thank
so, even though it's it's a big asteroid, and they've demoted Pluto as a planet, which doesn't matter really because it has huge effects on us. And not a lot of time, but sometimes people ask me, is astrology a science? And I just look at them. It's like, okay, to answer it one more time, it's not. It's not really, and I don't even look at science as being all that scientific. What the new science makes more sense in terms of quantum theory, and I certainly can't claim to know much about it. What I have gotten out of it, which is of course spiritual, is that we're in an interconnected web of energy, and we're at different scales of size, so that the pattern in our solar system of the planets when we were born, that's our energy signature for us when we're born at that time, at that place, and we're all in this web of connection with different scales of magnitude. Our galaxy, the Milky Way, is a weeny tiny, very unimportant one as galaxies go, but all the galaxies move in a spiral. So our galaxy is moving too. That's the next level of hugeness, so to speak. So it's all in scale and it's all related. So someone made a good point last night. They said, well, then if we pray, is that helpful? I said, yeah, it affects the web. Because anything we do energetically affects the web of interconnectivity. And so Pluto, yes, hundreds of millions of miles away. Of course it doesn't affect us directly if you want to measure it with, we don't have anything. You can't. It's the wrong kind of energy you're looking at, the wrong paradigm, put it that way. So no, yeah, it's a faraway planet, it's a cold rock. How can it affect me when it's on my moon? It profoundly affects me when it goes by my moon. It's part of the web of energy. So you need to take it less literally, that that's a piece of rock and it's an energy configuration that's in the web and that intimately affects us. And this last year and a half, when I've had Saturn over my moon again, I was profoundly affected and nearly died. It was like, didn't want to stay, not with that energy. And now I'm in another cycle.
About this kind of thing? So from your paradigm, from the paradigm that you're talking about, are we then, if we forget that we are these physical bodies, are we like an energetic imprint or web ourselves, and all these other energetic influences of the universe or whatever, are they structuring and imprinting our energetic presence?
Well, we have an energetic, it's hard to talk about it, but it's like an energetic signature we all have, and it's aligned with where were the planets in our solar system. There are infinite solar systems in our solar system. So in that scale, we're like a hologram, a holographic energetic pattern describing the relationship between the planets as though we're standing in the middle, and this is how they were rotating around us. So we put ourselves at the center when we're looking at a chart.
Well, in Switzerland, the government pays people who are building houses who have someone go in and survey where they're going to put their bedrooms and where their head is going to be, because it's so much rock in Switzerland. The contour of the land is so rocky, so that the rocks affect your brains. The energetic patterns where you live certainly affect you, and also in many cultures, people like their heads to the north.
North or the east.
Or the east,
I have a question. When you talk about the feminization, or you said that people have referred to this pattern or this time as a feminization of the sun, what does that mean?
Well, I don't know. We're going to see. But the sun is a major masculine image, and in all traditional religions, the sun is masculine, and and connected with a deity that's masculine. And so this feminine energy crossing over it that we can see is just one of the different patterns that are happening to let us know that the energy is changing. It's softening. And a lot of men are hungry for this energy of receptivity and connectivity and so on, because they've been acculturated to be separate and in a sense lead sterile lives, all separate from their heart, separated from their heart and their priorities and what makes us human.
Eleanor, it's interesting. This is one of the first times, like in listening to you, that I've had this kind of thought about our existence here, like forgetting that we're seeing each other right now as manifestations in physical form, right? Like I look at you, I think, oh yes, that's Suzanne or whatever. But that's really based on a physical, visual thing that I'm seeing. Yeah. But if we did not have that to go by, right, and all we could experience in all of us, in each one of us, was some kind of an energetic pattern, like, okay, there's an energetic pattern, there's another energetic pattern. And that when our physical body dies, the physical form that I see right now dies, but maybe, this is just what I thought I was having, maybe that energetic pattern that we are returns, as the energy into a larger energy. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it remains in that pattern, maybe it, dissipates into different energies that create new energies. Maybe if we are reincarnated, they recollect as a different energy based on the birthing of, in the astrological sense of where everything is on the new birth. But it's just this idea, I suddenly didn't see us as physical anymore, like a concrete sort of physical manifestation, but as this really empty energy pattern, that you're an energy pattern, full of space and emptiness and movement and whatever. And this is Suzanne, and actually I experience you on that level as much as I experience you on the hi Suzanne. So it's helpful to hear what you're saying, because I'm conceiving things a little differently.
Yeah, and of course, given that we're embodied. We think we're solid, and it's like preaching to the choir.
Yeah. Right here.
Right here, yeah.
Us girls.
Us girls, yeah. So, and that's so, but it's amazing to me how everything is, and I'm sure there are hundreds and hundreds of other traditions that are leading us to this time too, through their systems of whatever their metaphor systems are, whatever their systems are.
When you're starting to explain a little bit about Pluto is in Capricorn?
Yeah, and Uranus is in Aries, thank you. And Aries is very volatile in Uranus. It's a fire sign, it's impulsive, it's impetuous, it leaps before it even looks to see if they're leaping into a swimming pool and there's water there or not. So Uranus is in a very combustive, very volatile energy. And so it's much different than Uranus in Virgo in the 60s. It's in Aries. And so Aries is this fiery energy that's cracking through that Pluto foundation. And if it's strong, it'll survive. If not, it won't.
So you said originally Uranus was an Aquarian influence?
It's the ruler of Aquarius, but we can put that away. It doesn't...
It's more about innovation
it can be innovation because it's break down and break through. So that saying by Leonard Cohen that I love, like ring the bells that still can ring, forget your perfect offering, there is a crack in everything, that's how the light gets in. Well, Uranus is the cracker of systems, and it's the cracker it cracks to let the light in. And so it can also be very, very shocking and very difficult, like a hurricane or a volcano. That volcano is Uranus squaring Pluto too. It affects the Earth, and it affects every living system. And so it's so during this time, it's important for us to do what we can to stay grounded, because I'm finding, and I hear that from a number of people now, I can only do a few things in one day, much less than usual, because it seems to be like...
too, and I'm not even that old yet.
I quite agree.
Yeah, that I can do...
I thought it was my age.
No. Yeah, it's interesting, because at the place last night, this person said, I thought it was old age. And then, but most people felt the same way, and some of them were in their 30s.
Yeah.
It's not an age-related thing.
And I knew that, but I kept blaming it on, because you can feel the energy.
Yeah,
change.
it just takes a lot of energy to get through all of this right now. And so I'm finding I've needed to really slow down and do, maybe if I'm doing my email, then I need to take 2 hours off and read a book. It's really amazing. And a lot of people last night, or several people, said they were experiencing it. You can't run around now,
May I ask another question?
Sure.
Astrology? What is the relationship between Aries and Capricorn? Just sort of spatially, or...
Well, Aries is the ram, and it butts its head against things, and it jumps into things. And Capricorn is the goat, striving to climb to the top of the mountain. Very ambitious, striving. And so when they're squaring each other, Aries would bring a lot of spontaneity in, that Pluto and Capricorn are very industrious, but wouldn't have that spontaneity. It's like fire meeting earth, because Capricorn's earth, Aries is fire. And so it's very combustive. If you just look at the Occupy movement started when Pluto and Uranus were starting to be not exactly in square, but close enough. We're starting to feel the buildup for at least a year and a half. And now, on the 24th of June, they're going to be exactly squaring on that day.
Saint Jean-Baptiste Day. Wow, Montreal, look out.
Well, but also to understand that Uranus and Pluto are squaring right now within a half a degree. So, I mean, they are squaring. Oh, yeah. And they have been quite close for a number of months now. So when they say there's an exact square on the 24th, well, Uranus and Pluto will have 7 exact squares over the next 4 years before it. So it's 2012, 13, 14, until early March of 1915. So we have quite a ways to go. We're kind of in the first quarter at the most.
It's too tempting.
And may I ask another astrology question? So I was just reading also that now, like right about now, is when Jupiter is entering Gemini.
Yeah.
From Taurus to, and so what does that temper the kind of combustibility that or how does that relate to?
Well,
this
you're asking really good questions because I wanted to talk about Venus in Gemini. Venus has been in Gemini for an extraordinarily long time with a long retrograde. It came in around, I can't remember exactly, maybe April, early May, and it's there till the 8th of August. And Venus in Gemini are the twins. Gemini has to do with relationships, and especially now it's retrograding until, for another week or so. It has to do with, reviewing and repairing relationships with, it has to do with relationships. And Venus is spending a lot of time in there right now, and so it's interesting. The 2 eclipses were in Gemini. The Sun was in Gemini twice in these. So a lot of what's being called forth is, how do we do relationships? How do we repair or review them, and so on? And Gemini isn't the deepest sign for relationships. It still, though, has to do with communication. It's the twins, and so it has to do with dialogue and open communication. And with Venus, it would be creative and find creative ways to open new dialogue and so on. So it's very significant in terms of Saturn in Jupiter in Taurus moving to Gemini. Frankly, it's hardly any energy compared to Uranus squaring Pluto. But if you notice it in your chart, and you happen to have it crossing a Gemini planet or making it's definitely significant to the individual.
Okay.
And it depends. But in terms of the energetic patterns, Uranus squaring Pluto is the big one. It's huge. It's so violent now.
Okay.
And as I say, but it also leads to breakthroughs.
Yes.
So it does lead to light through the cracks.
That's what I want to say. I mean, as I'm an Earth sign, and I've been interested in Capricorn and Saturn and learning about them. And it seems that I've understood that the responsibilities and structural responsibilities and assignments that are sort of undertaken somehow through Capricorn and Saturn, that if those were sort of shocked and shaken a little bit, that there could be a little bit of complement, like there could there not be some kind of productivity or some kind of rare kind of synergy that can come of that? Oh
yeah, well look at what's happening in China. You know what's happening also with this square is that what has been secret is now revealed. So people, the Chinese government, for one example, can deny something, but then someone puts it on Facebook and they see a video. Yeah. So things are really that's another big theme right now. What has been secret, like they kept the wampum belts secret and sacred. They never showed it outside of a very small number of people, and they brought it to the vigil every year. And there was one group of people who were Seminole Indians that only came to the vigil once, and it was really amazing. They got this spiritual message to drive up from Florida to Washington, D.C. and tell their creation story. Well, most of the traditional people were shocked because it is totally hidden and secret. And the Smithsonian, people and all kinds of other people have been asking, what is your creation story? The ethnology people and so on. They never did. One year they show up and they're on the microphone telling us the creation story through an interpreter. We were like, and in fact, this guy, I remember his name was Sonny Billy, the guy who was his main aide or assistant was a Mohawk Indian, and he was absolutely horrified, but it came out. So it's even more so now in that when we have all this electronic media and we're able to almost simultaneously see what's going on in Syria, they can't say it's not happening. So, there's a lot going on, and all I can say is it's unpredictable, because it's unpredictable, and so to my mind the best social security are having good relationships so that we can be with each other and support each other and remind each other, to take a rest or to, remind each other of whatever we need to remind each other of.
Yeah.
To me that's social security, a lot of it. Yeah,
you're right.
So it's and Bill and I have always been interested in living in community, and there are lots of communities that are sprouting right not far from Ottawa, according to John.
Yes,
John, who's John? I got to speak with
John
him.
Irving. Yeah, this friend of ours. He's doing on my website. Well, I'm just looking at the time.
Yeah, it's 1:25.
Okay,
is right here, like right now. I mean, community. It's nice.
Yeah.
It is good to know about communities elsewhere, but community is also right here.
Absolutely.
For more information about Eleanor or to book a reading, please visit eleanorkibrick.com or find Eleanor on Facebook at Eleanor Kibrick Astrologer.